Fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hand. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand.
Hi, welcome to Healing Outside the Box. I'm Rosemary Lachance, an energy healer and a therapist.
And I'm Lisa Burton. I am a heart-centered lifestyle coach.
Go ahead. You're reading it.
Oh, okay. We are dedicated to providing you with food for thought, information, and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more, in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. We ask you to embrace the show with an open mind, and we will give you our contact information at the end of the show, so please enjoy. If you have any other ideas for future shows, please let us know. Thank you.
And if you know any interesting people that might make a really good show for us, please call and let us know that too. Okay, thank you. Now, tonight is our 113th show. 113. Have you been with us from number one? Okay, the title of the show is Why Does Everything Hurt So Much? Now, we all have that problem, right? And our guest is the wonderful Dr. Aviva Wertkin. She's a naturopathic doctor. She's been with us before, and we just love her.
Welcome, Aviva.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. That's all right. I'll get you later. Get your big hug. Okay, and to tell you a little bit about Aviva, again, she earned her doctorate of naturopathic medicine at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. She has conducted research at a National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine and at the National Institute of Mental Health in Bethesda, Maryland, resulting in several publications. Dr. Wertkin is also a 3-time recipient of the National Institutes of Health's prestigious Intramural Research Training Award. Whew, got that out. She has completed a residency in naturopathic family medicine and enjoys providing naturopathic care for all ages with all health concerns. She has a special interest in neuroendocrine and immune conditions, including hormone imbalances, chronic pain, fatigue. Dr. Wertkin uses classical naturopathic therapies along with acupuncture in her practice and is mindful of the psychospiritual aspects of illness. Okay, well, we could ask you again, for those of you who may not have seen you before, how you got into what piqued your interest to become a naturopathic doctor.
Oh, sure. That's a great question.
Okay.
I think it started mostly when I started to get sick when I was in college. I had an interest in helping people and had an interest in natural health, but never wanted to be a doctor. Didn't even know naturopathic medicine existed.
Oh, wow.
But when I got sick in college, I went to the doctors and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And it took over 2 years of going to different specialists, different doctors, and just getting worse and worse. And I didn't even like the whole experience, you know, of going and having doctors throw prescriptions at me, never answering my questions. And I just wanted to know why. Why is this happening? And they just say, we don't know why, just take this. Mm-hmm. And so I kept wanting to pursue other options, and I went home to visit my parents over a vacation or a break, and my mom suggested seeing a naturopathic doctor. And so I went, and she said, oh, it sounds like this. Let's do some, different kinds of testing. She figured out what was wrong with me and got me better, and it opened my eyes to this whole new way of medicine that I didn't know existed, and I became motivated to be the kind of doctor that I had been looking for.
Wow.
So people wouldn't have to search so long to get the help that they wanted.
Right.
And then I wasn't pre-med in college, so when I started doing research, I did my pre-med and then went to school, and I have found naturopathic medicine to far exceed my expectations, and I love it more every single day. It's an incredible, sometimes it's not even work. Honestly, when you do what you love, it's really
do what you love, you
wonderful.
never have to work a day in your life, they say.
A way you could give us a quick definition of a naturopathic physician?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. Basically, we are specialists in natural medicine. Mm-hmm. We can serve as primary care doctors or family practice doctors who use a variety of natural therapies to treat the whole person and treat the underlying cause of illness, to restore health and to cure, so to speak.
And you do all kind of testing too, don't you? Just like a doctor would do, right?
So our training is very similar to conventional medical doctors. So we do all the same basic sciences. We do learn pharmacology in school, but then in addition we learn other things like clinical nutrition, herbal medicine, physical medicine, and on homeopathy. But we also will do standard testing, blood work, x-rays, MRIs, whatever a patient needs. And in addition to that, we're also trained in other more biochemical testing, things to look a little bit deeper at what's happening on a physiological level. So I kind of think of it as a lot overlapping with conventional care, but then a lot that makes what we do very different. And I don't pretend to be a medical doctor. I don't do what they do. There is just some overlap in our assessments.
You said you're mindful of the psychospiritual aspects of illness. Would you explain that?
Sure. I think in a lot of cases, especially with chronic illness, but you can see this in some short-term illnesses, where there can be an emotional or a spiritual component, sometimes as the cause of that manifestation, sometimes as a contributing factor. So when someone comes in with something, I really want to find out what's going on for them, and not only how much pain they're in or whatever's going on, but what else is happening in their life and contributing, because that can make a huge difference in whether someone can get well. So that is definitely a big part of my practice, and it depends on where someone's at. Some people come in and they'll ask me, do you think my emotions could be affecting how I'm feeling? And other people are on the other side where they just can't even go there. It's so scary to look at that stuff, and we have to first work on some other things for them to hopefully get to that place of addressing it. But I have found that when an emotional or spiritual component is related to their illness, if we don't address that, we don't really heal the whole picture. We can help get them out of trouble or out of pain, but to really cure means really addressing all of those things.
There's a commercial on TV advertising a medication for depression, but I paid attention to, and I noticed they said all the body aches that you get because of the depression, and that's what you're talking about. That can cause all that.
Yeah, and some doctors have figured that out with some women with chronic pain, with fibromyalgia, other things. When the medications don't work, they'll use an antidepressant, and sometimes that will work.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, I'm depressed because I don't feel well. Well, okay, so let's just get you better and then you won't be depressed. But a lot of times there's depression, anxiety going along with it at the same time, and they might treat them as separate things when they're really all integrated as part of one picture.
Right. That's right, and that's what you do. That's really great.
Thank you.
And I'm just thinking, though, prescription medication really just masks what's going on.
Exactly.
In the case of depression. Correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so a lot of people will find even when they go on antidepressants initially, they feel so much better. It's like a miracle for them. But then it doesn't last.
Right.
And so then you have to keep increasing the dose of the medication, adding another medication, but it's because it's not fixing the problem.
Right.
It doesn't work. And sometimes people will come in and say, well, I don't want to be on the antidepressant. Can you just give me a natural version of that? And I'll say, well, why are you feeling depressed? What's going on? Well, no, I don't even want to go there. I just want something to mask it. Like, well, then I'm probably not the right doctor.
Exactly.
for you.
Exactly. That's such a big part of it, going there and finding out. It's a shame that people don't want to face that. I know, it's like, it's one big hurt and then it's over.
Right.
That's what, somebody said to me when I had to get a needle or something. One big hurt, it's over. And the same thing with that. Once you address it the first time, it's never going to hurt as much again. When you keep addressing, it's going to get less and less and less, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I can understand it's scary. I mean, there's a reason people suppress it and don't want to face it. But it's like any kind of change, anything uncomfortable, you have to go through that burning door, and then you're through it.
Exactly.
Like, oh, it's so much better. And it's never as bad as people think it's going to be. It's never as scary as you think it's going to be. And certainly I know in my own case, there was an emotional and spiritual component to my illness when I was in college. And it took a long time for me to be able to face that. So I can understand when people also have that resistance to it. But truly, it makes such a difference. It's like this big, once you get through it. And sometimes when, this great example related to pain, when this woman came in with back pain. And I had seen her in the past for other things, but she called up and said, I hurt my back, can I come in? And so she came in and she wanted acupuncture, which we do frequently. But in her case, before I did the acupuncture, we just sat down to talk. And it turned out she was going through a divorce, and she was really scared about finances and not feeling supported, and just, you know, all the things that go along with a really hard transition like that. So I did a couple of acupuncture points just to help her emotions and her spirit relax, and a couple of points. And we just sat and talked and worked through things that she could do to help support herself through that. And when she got up, her pain was gone.
Wow.
And she said, "Oh, the acupuncture is amazing," you know. But I thought, she also knows, you know, she didn't say it, but really, for her, the back pain was about the not feeling supported and feeling scared.
Right, because our back supports us, right? And that's the area,
Exactly. So
exactly.
that can be really symbolic. And that was a great thing because it was so instant for her. You know,
That's
to go,
great.
"Oh, I feel so much better." And I said, "Okay, if it comes back, come in." But she did great. I checked in with her a week later, and she was doing great.
I'm thinking that sometimes the struggle isn't so much the struggle. The struggle is the surrender.
Yeah, that's a great way to say
And
it.
that being open to exploring some of those feelings and being open to maybe a different type of medical intervention would be
Yeah.
the surrender.
I think that's a great way to put it, because
It is.
so many people don't want to surrender, and you hold on to it and you think, I can just keep going. I can just sort of power through it without dealing with it. I'm strong, I can handle it, I'll just keep going and going, and not wanting to surrender to the process or to what's going on and having to face it. And then there's the other side of seeing an alternative practitioner and being okay to try something outside of the box.
As a spiritual psychotherapist, I tell my people to give an example of what it's like to go through that, talking about all this. Give an analogy of, picture a forest, and you walk into the forest, and that's the beginning of getting better. You slowly walk in, and in the middle of the forest there's a house. Put your hand on the doorknob, and you know inside that house you don't want to go because there's a lot of pain inside that house. Lots and lots of pain. But if you want to get through it, you have to go inside. You go inside, we work through all that, then you come out the other side, and you walk back through the woods and out. And the back of it is, now we found out what it was, now we're going to put you back together and walk out the other side of the woods and be free. It's a good analogy, isn't it?
It's a great analogy.
Yeah. So that's why, so don't be afraid. It's a walk in the woods into a cottage and back out of the woods.
And you know that you're safe the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
I have this little card on my desk that says, "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone."
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that comfort zone means avoiding that house, doing anything at all costs to avoid it. But once they do, it's so liberating.
It is.
You know,
Some people will stop at the house.
Yeah.
I know, but
And
others go
eventually,
through it.
when they're ready,
Yep.
they'll go through it.
Come back, go through it, yeah.
Yeah.
So as a naturopathic doctor, how do you approach pain differently than a medical doctor?
Well, I think part of that is really, Lisa, kind of what you were saying is, for a medical doctor, they look at pain as the problem, and a naturopathic doctor looks at pain as a symptom of a problem. So that, I think, is one of the sort of defining differences. Then you can look at the tools that we use. So depending on the kind of pain, you're probably going to see a different kind of specialist, whether it's a neurologist, a rheumatologist, orthopedist, or a pain management specialist. But they're all going to come from a place of managing the pain for you. It's not even in their paradigm to cure it. In the naturopathic paradigm, everything's curable given the right condition. And if you look at the pain as a symptom, then our job is to really look for the cause. We're not saying the pain's the cause, we're saying something's obviously triggering it. So this analogy I like to use with my patients is, imagine you're sitting in your home in the living room or kitchen and your fire alarm goes off. You could think of the fire alarm as the pain. It's really loud, it's really annoying, it's distracting. So what you could do, what your medical doctor would advise you to do, is pull that alarm off the wall, disengage it, and now the alarm's off.
Right.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. But you know, and you're kind of laughing because you know obviously it signals something else. And if you ignore that, the fire's going to keep getting worse, and you don't want your house to burn down.
Right.
Right.
But when it comes to health, you ignore it. You just keep going around the house pulling the alarms off the wall.
That's a great analogy too. I like it. Gee, we're full of this tonight, right? That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you. So it's really, I think the main difference is we're trying to dig deeper to figure out what's causing the problem so you don't have to manage it. And then I think even our tools are going to be different because we do have things that can be used as pain relievers, but really if you're having excruciating pain, most things most of the time, nothing's going to work as well as those pain medications. They're going to, if you need to suppress a symptom, those medications suppress symptoms better than anything. But that's not really a good long-term solution.
Right.
And the tools that we have are going to be very safe, and I found them to be very effective, and you don't have to worry about side effects and other issues of toxicity related to using our treatments.
What about addiction with natural remedies?
Pretty much impossible.
Really? Because I think that's a concern people have with traditional pain medications.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, because you develop a dependency on it. But that's also because it's not treating the cause, and as your body becomes dependent and used to it, you have to keep increasing the dose to get that same benefit. But it doesn't work that way with the natural therapies. Most of the things that we prescribe are things that belong in the body to restore it to normal levels. Once you're there, you'll find you don't need it anymore.
I see.
And with medication, you can't stop it right away.
Correct.
You can throw you into some kind of what?
A pain crisis, you can have a big flare of whatever your initial symptoms were.
And psychologically, it does something to your mind.
Absolutely. So you have to, very carefully wean off. And oftentimes people do better with a lot of other support to help do that. We never want people to cold turkey their medication.
No.
And you don't have to do that with supplements. It doesn't have the same effect on the body.
You can just stop. Yep.
Sure. I mean, you could say any substance could be toxic or harmful if you don't know what you're doing, if you take too much of something. But in general, if you're working with a trained professional, then they know what's safe for you and how to take it.
That's how they get a bad name sometimes. People will go ahead and buy some of the things in the health food store without even consulting the person there who knows what she's doing, you know. And then they get sick, and then they say, oh, well, natural things are no good, you know, shouldn't take it, blah, 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 right? And they take it off the shelf and all that. Of course, that's probably backed by the pharmaceutical companies, but I'm not going to say that.
But it also shows you how desperate people are to get better, and they don't know what to do, so they're surfing the web, and they're going to stores, and they're just getting whatever they can to try to get better.
Yeah.
And most people don't know, even today, that there are doctors who are trained to specialize in natural therapies.
You're right. I mentioned naturopathic doctor to a cashier checking out a supermarket. She said, what's that? I went, oh my God, I thought everybody knew.
I know, me too. I forget sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about coming on the show is having the opportunity to tell people that there is something else available, and there are physicians who are trained in this to know what's safe and what your body needs. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
Exactly.
You know, so thank you.
Well, what kind of pain conditions do you treat?
Pretty much any kind of pain that walks in the door, whether it's headaches, migraines, neck pain, back pain, foot pain, chronic pelvic pain. Any part of the body really can hurt, and a naturopathic doctor generally is trained to address any of those, because we don't just look at the body in different parts. Because we're looking at the whole system, we can figure out why something's hurting, honestly, by putting it all together and saying, okay, well, the reason your foot hurts is because of this, you know, or you're having migraines because of this. And it's not always just one thing. A lot of times it can be a multitude of factors that cause it, but you can have pain anywhere in the body, which means it can be treated, right? Anyway, if the body can get sick, the body knows how to get well, given the right conditions. So it's really wonderful. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you had a percentage of your practice that people come to you for pain-related issues.
I don't know the percentage, but I'd say it's pretty high. You know, people might come in even for fatigue, and they don't even know that I can address their chronic neck pain, per se. Some people come in just for that. A lot of people come in with pain, but a lot of people are coming in for their sinuses or other things, and then when I'm getting their history, like, oh, well, that makes sense that that would be going on, or, you know, because a lot of things are interrelated.
Right.
But I would say it's a pretty high percentage, and usually people with pain have more than one thing going on. They might not be aware of it, because sometimes, depending on how bad the pain is, it overrides the other things.
Right.
You know, or people go, gosh, I didn't even know I was having that stomach pain till it went away.
Yes.
But it's pretty high. I think pain's one of the #1 reasons people visit their doctor.
Seek out a physician,
Yeah. And usually more for physical pain than emotional pain.
Oh, yeah.
I even had a patient who said to me, I don't come in because I'm emotionally hurting. It's too embarrassing. I only come in when I have physical pain.
Wow.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That's
But
really
hopefully
too
that'll
bad.
start to turn around.
If they can see this show, if they can realize that the two are connected, maybe they'll be brave and try,
Yeah.
you know. If you want to be totally happy and completely happy and get inner peace, and that's what you have to do. You have to make that step into the pain a little bit, walk into the cottage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, a lot of people who come in with pain, usually it's because they haven't gotten better with conventional treatment or because they can't tolerate the medications. And it's out of desperation that a lot of people with pain will come into my office and go, okay, well, I need to do something else because this isn't working.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people now, because there's a lot of research showing that acupuncture can be helpful, people are now coming in specifically for that, saying, you know, my doctor said it was okay for me to try acupuncture, or, you know, someone else suggested, they said it worked for them. And so that's also bringing people in the door, which is great because the acupuncture can be profoundly helpful, and then the other aspects of being a naturopathic doctor can come through and say, okay, well, in addition to the acupuncture, I also think this is what's going on and will help you get better faster. But I have seen just acupuncture work miraculously for people, which is great.
Wow.
Well, I learned that people don't want to make their doctor mad.
Yeah, that's true.
They really don't want to make their doctor mad. Oh, he might get mad. Yeah, but you're the patient, and he has to work for you, you know. No, I don't want to get him mad.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear around that. People don't want to offend them. They don't want to make them mad. Even if their doctor doesn't help them, there's still that aspect of it. Like, but isn't the whole point to get you better? You
I know. I don't know. I don't
It's hard, and
understand.
I sometimes feel really bad that patients get put in the middle, you know, and they'll say they're coming in because they want to get better and they're not getting better, and then I'll say something or suggest something and their doctor says, well, don't do that, and now they're stuck.
Wow.
You know, like, what do I do? Which way do I go? And I'm not the kind of doctor to say, do what I say and I'll be mad if you don't, you know, kind of like, well, here's the information and you decide. You know, it's your body. And
Exactly.
you know,
Remember when I
Thank
first
you.
met Dr. Stensnick, before you worked there, it was back in, what was it, in the 80s? 90s? Yeah, the 90s. And I was having these panic attacks. And these, like, you know, all of a sudden, I'd feel good, and all of a sudden I'd start to get really freaky and just, what is, you know, what's going on? I feel terrible. I feel like I'd want to, if I was in a shopping mall, all of a sudden I wanted to run out of the mall screaming and things like that. And I can't do this. So I went to the doctor. He put me on some kind of a tranquilizer. And then I would talk like that. You know, I said, well, we can't do that. So I said, no. And I don't remember how I found out about it. I went to see him. And he took one little test. He said, I think this is going to help you. He put me on a mineral called chromium picolinate. I had low blood sugar, which can cause so many symptoms.
Yeah.
The minute I started on it, everything was gone.
Wow.
You healed me. I told him you healed me. You made me well.
What amazing.
Oh my God.
Isn't that
It's so
amazing?
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, Rosemary, it's a perfect example because you would otherwise go to the doctor and say, I need something for the anxiety. And
Right.
then you get on a medication, it's still not fixing the problem.
it wasn't.
And then you have the side effects from it, and you're feeling groggy and spaced out, and you can't drive or other things.
Right.
And really, it was a blood sugar issue. And so I love that example because it really illustrates what we do is to figure out why you're having those panic attacks, because it could be a variety of things. But in your case, getting your history could help him narrow down on what's causing that for you.
Well, he told me too, sometimes you can go through a big stress, which I just had one, and a big stress in your life can throw your body totally out of sync. And that's what happened, then the blood sugar dropped instead of up. I would never have thought, never in a million years, that would be something like that. But I guess it had to be an in-my-face thing that had to happen to me so that, excuse me, in the future, I would have this show and I would do the things I do and get into the fields that I'm in. And
Yeah, that makes
sometimes it
perfect
has to
sense.
happen. You have to go through a little
Your eyes
suffering.
opened up.
Yep.
Yeah, to
And
really
I
just
just-
like, you know?
I just had somebody this week who actually came in and said, can you give me, I'm having really bad anxiety. I want something natural for anxiety. I said, okay, well, let me figure out what's causing your anxiety.
Right.
And in her case, it was a blood sugar issue. And I tested her, and she was really low in chromium. And she's like, this is like a miracle thing.
Same thing,
You know,
yeah.
same exact thing. But I had somebody else with very similar stuff, but in their case, it was an adrenal fatigue problem. So we had to supplement their adrenals, and their panic attacks went away. Another patient, it turned out, theirs was a food reaction. If they ate gluten or eggs, within a couple of days, they would have a panic attack. And it started off as this low-grade anxiety that built up and built up. And that's what I love as part of the detective work, to figure out, well, in your case, it's a food reaction, and in your case, it's a mineral deficiency, and in the other person's case, it's adrenal, and sometimes it can overlap. But that's why we don't just give something for anxiety, you know, so that's...
So it is really being the detective and finding out for that individual person.
Yeah, for each person.
What's going on.
And it can be so simple.
So simple.
And take something that's not going to give you any side effects at all, and you have a normal life.
Yep.
And I'm also thinking it probably a lot less costly.
Oh, a lot less costly. And it's literally giving your body back one of its nutrients that it needs to function. And sometimes people go, oh, supplements, you know, they're not necessary or they're dangerous. But most of them are giving your body the vitamins, minerals, or essential fatty acids that it needs. That's part of how our body functions. You know, when you're studying the sciences and biochemistry, you look at how each of these nutrients, what they do in the body, and how each pathway works. So if you don't have enough, let's say, of chromium, then your receptors for insulin are going to be more sensitive. You're not going to be able to regulate. Your blood sugar drops. You start to feel that anxious, sweating, panicky feeling. And so you just give that back. You just replenish that nutrient, and then when your levels normalize, you don't have to keep supplementing.
Well, I've been taking it
for a long time.
Oh yeah, and I also read that it does help for high blood pressure. I mean, high blood sugar, right?
Yep.
So it keeps a nice balance. Oh, isn't it true that back when I was young, the way they farmed and everything, they would let the soil rest, let the nutrients build back up in them and everything, and then they would farm on them. But today it's like no rest. It's constant. That the soils are depleted, so the food is depleted, and you're not getting the minerals that we used to get. So therefore, you have to take supplements, right?
Yep,
you're not getting the vitamins or the minerals. And I'm not talking about a drugstore vitamin like one a day.
Yeah, no.
Oh, God. I said, you might as well not take anything if you're going to take that. Jeez.
And Dr. Sunsenik says, just, you might as well eat the cardboard box
right.
it comes in.
Exactly. You have to go and get the right things and find out. Go to Naturopath, see what you need, and take these things.
It's so true. It's really unfortunate because people still think they can get everything they need from their food, and it's virtually impossible. And you can actually look online. The USDA tracks the nutrient content of our food, and it drops every single decade with all the vitamins and minerals. So most people now need to supplement. And we do a lot of testing in our office to find out which nutrients people are deficient in and which ones they need. And then my goal is usually to get people on a really good multiple vitamin and mineral so that they can just maintain. But most people now need to supplement. And when I first started getting into naturopathic medicine, I love the idea of food as medicine and using that way to get all of our nutrients. And I still love food as medicine, but you just can't rely on it. Even people who eat such good diets, because I have some patients who come in that I ate all organic, and I've been a vegan, or I've been this, and I know there's no way I'm deficient. Like, I'm sorry to tell you.
I know, because
It's
I've been
not the
reading
way it used to be.
Sometimes organic is still not all cracked up to what it's supposed to be. There's still problems that seep in there. So yeah, you're right, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really hard. You don't want to get me started too much on the food in this country, but I will say that the whole genetic modification of foods, it's really, really scary.
Oh my God, yes.
As the research is starting to come out where they do studies longer than 6 weeks, they're finding really harmful side effects, and they're basically experimenting on the population, and Monsanto is doing everything to block labeling so that people don't know, and they're trying to convince people that there's really no harm. You know, and people who want it labeled are elitists or snobs, but really we should be allowed to know what's in our food and to be able to make decisions. And if there's something that's potentially risky, why do it? It's not necessary, you know, for consumers.
I was shocked seeing an expose on the news about, you know, these mega fish that they're breeding, and that they were not required to put on the label that it was modified. Like, it would say farm raised.
Right. And then people think, well, farm raised sounds good. Like, it's from the farm, so it must be okay. Like, no, you don't know what they're feeding it, and the drugs and the dyes they inject to make it look like a healthy fish.
Right.
It's so, and it's high in heavy metals, all of these things, and people think they're eating a healthy food. And I think this is also contributing to the escalating rate of food allergies and sensitivities.
Yes.
I mean, a gluten sensitivity was maybe 1 in a few hundred a few years ago, and now you turn around and somebody else has to be gluten-free or dairy-free or egg-free. And I don't know if you notice that as much. It's certainly something I see every day.
Well, I run a child care center also, so we have a lot of children that have restrictions
Right,
that
yeah,
way.
you must see that a
Yeah,
lot. And that can make
yeah.
a huge difference for those kids.
Absolutely.
You know, and I know some moms don't know who to go to for testing, so they'll just try it and say, well, I tried, it didn't work. But you can do various testing to find out for these kids really what they're reacting to, and it can be night and day with some of their behavior and concentration. It's remarkable.
I think that we talked when we we went to appetizers one night that we're both allergic to wheat, and Dr. Sensnick too, right? And I was reading in one of those natural papers that the wheat now, back again, years and years ago, it used to be like the gluten was like 20%. Now it's 50% because it's genetically modified. It's genetically altered. So it's not the true wheat that used to be then. Okay? And, you know, I challenge Monsanto and any of those companies, if you think that this is, you don't have to label it because it's okay for you to have it, then why don't you label it? What are they afraid of? I want to know that question. I challenge it. What are you afraid of? Not to tell people what's in it.
Right. And I've heard them say, well, if we label it, people are going to think it's harmful, so they won't eat it, but then it's going to increase the cost of foods, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I don't think people care a few more pennies to know that they're healthy.
Right. I mean, really, if there wasn't a problem, why not just label it and let people decide?
That's right. That's right, exactly. Come out in the open and let them decide for themselves.
Yeah.
But no, if you hide it, that means you have something to hide and you're afraid. So.
Yeah. There is a great resource. There's a website. It's non-GMOshoppingguide.com. So it's a long non-GMOshoppingguide.com. But it does give you a list of companies that are really non-GMO. Because apparently now there's companies that say they're organic that aren't really organic.
Yes,
so you have to look on certain sites, the Organic Consumers Association, they'll list which companies really are organic. The only downside is there are some farms that don't make enough money to meet the labeling requirements that really are organic. But at least you know among the ones that say they are, you can determine which ones truly are.
And some of these supposedly natural companies have been bought out by the conglomerates. So now they're not really made like Ben & Jerry's is not Ben & Jerry's anymore. It's bought out by, I don't know what the company was, some big company. So they don't make it purely on the farm like they used to. It's different. That's just one, but there's lots and lots of them.
Right.
So,
and it really makes such a big difference when you're eating organic versus conventional. Not only if you can get the not genetically modified, but just having the constant exposure to pesticides has a long-term effect. I mean, people know about the bee colony collapse syndrome, which they finally admitted had to do with all the pesticides in the flowers.
So they did admit it.
They finally did admit it.
You want to talk a little bit about that? In case some of our viewers don't.
Well, so there's this thing where they call the bee colony collapse, where the colony started dying off of bees, and they started even noticing that the ones that were surviving, their behavior was very odd. They were flying in irregular patterns and getting lost and dying off. And what they finally, nobody could figure it out for a while. It was very, very mysterious. But then they finally were able to link it to the exposure to pesticides that's relatively new. And it's been increasing over the years when they go to get the nectar, you know, which is how they bring it back to the hive to make the honey. That exposure over several years started to accumulate and cause severe neurological damage and death. And if you think, you know, a bee's this big, you know, most people are a lot bigger, but it's affecting little kids all the way up to adults, and it's having an accumulative effect. And even when coming back to the pain, sometimes for people with chronic pain, what we have to do is detox them. Their bodies become so overburdened, the nervous system doesn't know what to do, the musculoskeletal system doesn't know what to do, and it can be heavy metals, it can be plastics, parabens, pesticides, solvents, all of these chemicals that most people don't think, it doesn't have an immediate impact on some people. Some people now who have chemical sensitivities will know, oh, when I'm around these chemicals, I'll get a headache, or I'll feel dizzy, or I'll feel anxious. But for the average person, there isn't an immediate measurable response. And so it just accumulates. And a lot of them get stored in our fat cells and in the bones, and it just builds up. And it's scary because you're thinking, well, if it's happening to these little critters, how long is it going to take to affect us?
That's right. And we need those bees.
We do.
We need them.
Everything is important for our environment and our ecosystem.
And you have means to test people for all those things, the metals, and see what's going on in their bodies, right? And that's everyone should have that. That's really great.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's definitely becoming a growing problem. And it's amazing. For some people with pain, as we detox them, they can actually feel the pain drain out of their limbs.
Wow.
Like there's some people where everything is so tight and achy, and we keep detoxing. And you can detox in a lot of different ways, but it will it'll drain. They'll just say, I can feel it move out, down and out.
Wow.
It's just amazing.
Wow.
So something to think about, and you know, and
It is.
And just to go back to the organic for a second, some people say it's too expensive, you know, to buy everything organic. I can certainly agree with that. So one of the things I like to offer is the Environmental Working Group. They have a website. It's ewg.org, and they have a list of produce highest and lowest in pesticides. So if you can't afford to buy everything organic, you can at least pick the fruits and vegetables that are lowest in pesticides and buy those non-organic, and the ones highest you want to buy organic. So nowadays we can get food all year round, that as opposed to eating seasonally. So strawberries, berries, those tend to absorb the most pesticides. You really want to buy those organic.
Right.
Things like onions, avocados with the thicker skins, they don't absorb as much. So if you have to pick and choose, and if you go to their website and you put in your email, they'll email you a sheet, and you can even cut out a wallet size. They have what they call the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 13, and then you don't have to memorize it. You can just take it with you when you go to the grocery store.
Great.
So it's EW what?
EWG.org for the Environmental Working Group.
And
So
all I
that
have to do is put
helps. That's a great
EWG.
resource.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
If anybody
Wonderful.
forgets that, you can, email me on my from my website, and I will give you that information again.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Great information.
Help get the info out there.
Do you ever
Yeah,
recommend
that's great.
natural treatments for back pain?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You see a lot of back pain. I think that might be really one of the number one reason people go to the
Right.
doctor. And a lot of people have numerous car accidents and don't realize that affects them, different falls and traumas. But some people also say, I was just bending over to pick something up,
Right.
and my back went out. You know, that's typically more low back issues and upper back, but we see upper back, mid back, lower back. And I would say a lot of times it's predominantly a musculoskeletal issue where the muscles go into spasm, get really tight. That alone can cause a lot of pain, but also the tight muscles will affect the connective tissue, the fascia, and then the bones. And if you think about all of our bones and joints move all the time, they help us stand up and get around, but all of those joints can also get out of place. And people can have a lot of herniated discs with that in any part of the spine,
Right.
and different misalignments. So one of the things we assess for with chronic back pain is there a skeletal misalignment, and what's happening that way? And those things can be treated with physical medicine, with acupuncture. Some people also use energy healing and Reiki in combination with things. So that's sort of the main approach that we'll take. And then there can be other things going on, and we always have, a whole tool bag of things that we use. But I would say predominantly for back pain, we're looking at different therapies to help correct the musculoskeletal system, be it physical medicine, acupuncture, things like that. We have some natural supplements. Even if someone's really deficient in calcium and magnesium, their muscles won't relax. They'll stay contracted. So sometimes all I have to do is say, please take some extra magnesium. And they're like, wow, what a
that's all
difference
I
it
needed,
makes.
yeah.
Things can start to relax a little bit.
I've been hearing lately, because I have the problem, a lot of people have sciatica problems. The pain, if anybody doesn't know, that's a pain that starts somewhere in your back, but it goes down, sometime into the groin, down the leg, down the knee, down the leg, down the calf and all that.
Yep.
So a lot of people have said that, and that would be from a misalignment somewhere.
Sometimes it's from a misalignment in the low back and the lumbar spine or the sacroiliac joint. Sometimes that can also be from a spasm in the gluteus muscle, the piriformis muscle.
Yes, the piriformis.
Yep. So we'll assess for that, and a lot of times that will take care of it. Sometimes, though, it can be a referred pain. You probably heard Dr. Sensitive talk a lot about cranial work, and so sometimes even things that are out of place in the head and the cranial bones will actually affect your low back. So we're really assessing from head to toe to figure out where the problem's coming from. But I've seen tons of patients come in with sciatica and get better. Our goal is usually if someone comes in with pain, we want them to walk out without it on the first appointment. Sometimes
Really?
that happens, not always, but that's our goal.
Wow.
And then sometimes
great.
we'll say, come in for a few treatments. And of course, nobody can help everybody, but it really can be treated. Most people don't have to live with it at all. And you're like, just just let me help you with this so you don't have to suffer.
Let me help you. I know.
So, and then you end up losing sleep because you can't get comfortable, or the pain wakes you up, and all of these things.
Right.
And like, just treat the cause of it rather
Right,
than
exactly.
trying to suppress the symptoms, and then you'll be done with it.
What about migraines?
Migraines, those I see a lot of too. And again, migraines are going to have different causes. Sometimes it can come from the neck. For people, you can have, again, muscle spasms and misalignment, so it can be a physical, mechanical problem causing the migraines. It can also be a digestive issue, believe it or
Really?
not. Things in the gut will affect your head. So
Really?
sometimes, it's kind of funny to say, but if someone's very constipated, as an example, they're probably, number one, deficient in magnesium, so things are going to be held tight everywhere, but also you have a buildup of toxins in the body, which will show up as a migraine. You can also have food reactions. Very common to see that it could be one or more foods that are setting off migraines. And then an emotional component. So I had a woman, she's 25 when she came to see me, early 20s, and she was having chronic daily persistent migraines, horrible. And she was on medications, which she said sometimes they help, sometimes they don't, but it also made her really nauseous, so she didn't like taking the medications. Was there anything I could do? So I checked her out and worked on her neck for a bit, and that seemed to help. And I tested her for hidden food sensitivities, and she was off the chart for gluten and eggs. And so when she cut those out of her diet, and we made a couple other changes, and for people, you can't use artificial sweeteners. I mean, sometimes that's just, that alone will get rid of migraines. But anyway, we cleaned up her diet, made changes, and it made a significant impact. She wasn't having daily headaches anymore. It was maybe twice a week, and not as severe. Like, great, we're on the right track. You're getting better. And so we started focusing more on her neck, which wasn't as bad as it was initially, but she would continue to have issues. So I'm thinking, well, what's going on? If she has to keep coming back for treatment, then I'm missing something. You know, if someone's not getting better, I feel like I'm at fault. So I asked her about what's going on emotionally. And she said, you know, nothing, I'm fine. And like, are you sure there's nothing going on? Because, you know, with the neck stuff, I kind of think of that symbolic as there's something out of balance between the head and the heart. So, you know, of course, let's look at what pillow you're sleeping on and how you're doing your work and how you sit at the computer and all those other things. But is there anything going on that, you know, on an emotional side? No, everything's fine. I'm not stressed about anything. All right, well, let's keep working on these other things. And then I didn't see her for a few months. And I thought, well, I guess I couldn't help her or whatever. And then she came back. And she said, I haven't had any headaches for 2 months. And I went, great, what did you do? And she said, well, I didn't tell you, but I really was unhappy in my relationship, and I didn't want to admit it. But I broke up with him, and then I realized how stressed I was. But with him gone, I haven't had a headache.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, ladies, you want to get rid of that headache? Get rid of the guy.
You know, so, and so we had to peel away the layers, you know.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the boyfriend. It was also, you know, the foods, and there was a little bit of the mechanical. But when she was willing to do all of those things and make those changes, she got rid of her chronic migraines, and she doesn't have to take medications
And she saw
anymore.
the whole picture.
Exactly.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
When we were chatting before the show had started, you had started to talk about prayer and all of this and how that plays a part of the healing process.
So that has started to come up more and more in my practice. And I actually just, was it this week or last week? I had a new patient who came in. She was actually, her reason for coming in was asthma. But she came in my office and she was in such bad pain. She just could barely tell me about her asthma because she said, everything in my body's hurting, every muscle, it hurts to talk. And she's been in and out of the hospital for the asthma. I said, well, what are they doing for this? Nothing, and it's just getting worse. So I'm racking my brain for what's causing this. Is it a side effect of the medications? Does she have Lyme disease? What's going on? And so I gave her a couple of supplements, and I asked her to do some testing and to come back within a week so I could see if we're making a difference and see if I could help her. And she came back a week later. She looked like a different woman. She's all smiles. Like, how are you doing? I'm doing great. Well, I still have the asthma. Like, what about the pain? Oh, the pain's gone. I went, wow, you took the supplements? Oh, I never took those. So I'm like, oh, okay. So how did you get rid of the pain? And she said, well, I went to church on Sunday, and my pastor was doing a healing prayer circle, and he said if anybody needs a healing to come up. And so the whole congregation prayed for me, and the next morning I woke up without pain. And it's been 4 days, and I'm still pain-free.
Wow.
And it was so amazing, and I think that must happen all over the world, all the time. But we don't talk about it in medicine. Somehow prayer and people's relationship with God or the divine, whatever you want to call it, has become separated. And people have forgotten how powerful prayer is. And I've started praying with some of my patients when they come in. I sometimes will pray in the morning just that for God to bring me the patients that I can help and to guide me, you know, to do that work to help people. And I'm just constantly amazed by something. I mean, you can't get much simpler than that. You can't get any less expensive than prayer. And so I started also doing some research over the weekend to see what studies have been done on prayer. And I came across this great study that was done by a cardiologist, believe it or not, who took about 400 patients that were admitted to the hospital in the cardiology unit, and they were divided up into two groups, about 200 patients each. And it was a randomized, you know, double-blind study, the whole gold standard thing for research. So half the group was normal treatment, the other half were randomized to have people all over the country pray for them. And there was about 5 to 7 people assigned to each patient, and all the people knew were the person's name and a diagnosis. So they didn't know anybody, and it was all done remotely, but they would just pray, and they weren't even told how to pray. Just please pray for this person for this amount of time. And then when they assessed the patients, the group that was prayed for had significantly less needs for medication, significantly less complications in the hospital, and had a higher overall survival rate.
Wow.
And they talked about if there was a medication that did that, it'd be the new blockbuster drug. But because it's prayer, nobody really hears about it. But I really think, you know, kind of as you asked earlier about the psychospiritual component, I really think that has to be included in getting well. And not only that, to be reminded of how powerful that can be. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not curing anybody, obviously. It's really, you know, up to God.
Source, yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, people don't realize the power that they have to heal. Just the lay person. They really don't, you know, I like to get them, like you said, get people together and just pray over somebody who needs it. People think, oh, I can't do that. You need to have all this experience. No, you don't.
You don't.
Just a heartfelt
intention.
Yeah, a heartfelt intention to heal someone. You know, I remember, oh God, way back when, let me see, it was in the 70s, I think it was, yeah, late 70s, early 70s. A friend of a neighbor had she had 3-stage cancer, and she came over one night, and my other friend came over too, who was a very strong spiritual person, and we were having a conversation, and all of a sudden I got this feeling. Grab her hands and pray. And I said, she said, I'm to be the love, and my girlfriend was to be the strength to give to her. And I'm going, no, I'm not going to do that. I ain't going to bring that up. You know, I'm going to be embarrassed as anything. And I kept getting this feeling in my chest, like, and I'm going, oh man, you know, and it won't go away. It was building and building and building. And it said, do it. And I, all right. So I said, okay, you're going to think I'm nuts, but I'm going to ask you to bear with me. I just got this strong feeling. And they both said, no, we don't think you're nuts. Let's do it. So we took her hands, and we all closed our eyes, and I sent her all the love that I could conjure up, and my friend sent her all the strength that she could conjure up. And we did that for a little bit, and we prayed silently. And she said she felt like an electric shock on her hands.
Wow.
Well, next time she went, she'd have to go to Maryland, to that cancer hospital that was down there. What is that? The one that put Hopkins?
Hopkins.
Yeah. And she had the test.
That's gone.
All gone.
Really?
No more cancer. I swear to God, if I'm lying, I could fall in a chair right now. And when she came back, I said, okay, now there's something that I was told you need to do. You need to write down your experiences. You need to spread the word, what can be done and how prayer can help. You need to do this. I just get this feeling that you should do this, you know. I will do it. Well, she got so wrapped up in the fact that she was feeling good, and she started to go out with her girlfriends, and I'm going, Joanne, remember what I said you should do? She go, I will, I promise, I'm going to write. Well, she didn't. She started going out, and then she started going out with men, cheating on her husband, and then she left her husband, And I'm going, Joanne, what are you doing? So she went. I kind of lost touch a little bit with her. She went back to the hospital, like maybe 3, 4 months, 6 months later. She had 4-stage cancer, and I had a dream that she passed on, and she did. So sometimes, you remember when Christ used to heal, and he'd go say, "Okay, you're healed. Go and sin no more." I hate the word sin, but it means don't do what you were doing before.
Right.
Change your life, change your ways, and you will stay healed the rest of your life. But if you don't, it'll come back.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
And
I mean,
this
the
is a
cancer comes
true
from
story.
somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a true story. Yeah. It was.
And I've heard now several stories of people who have had cancer of various stages where their church group has prayed and it's spontaneous remission.
Yes.
They go back and the cancer's gone.
Yep.
So it really can have such
Prayer
a
is
profound
powerful.
effect. I think it can't be overstated.
Oh, yeah.
It's so extraordinary. And it also, it reminds me of a couple of things of how many people give up on God when they're in chronic pain and they feel like they've been abandoned, and having some way to reconnect to help with the healing. And then also the power of belief, believing that you can get better and knowing. So a lot of times when people are praying, there's some part of them that knows there's a possibility for themselves or someone else to be healed or to be cured. And I think that really makes a difference. When you go to a doctor and they say, well, there's really no cure, and then you will believe that.
Yeah.
And then everything stems from that. But when you come from a place of believing cure's possible, well, then that just opens up the doors for all those possibilities.
Right.
That's true. That's very true. There have been people who have been told that, how had so much long to live, and
sure enough,
it went away, and they lived the rest of their lives out. What about natural treatments for fibromyalgia?
Fibromyalgia, well, for people who don't know, fibromyalgia is a chronic pain syndrome where people have very specific tender points on the body that can almost be hypersensitive to touch and to pain stimuli. And along with it can come difficulty with sleep and fatigue and anxiety, it's kind of a whole syndrome.
So you know what causes it?
Well, it often is more than one thing.
Okay.
And it's sort of a lot of women I've seen with fibromyalgia, it's an accumulation of issues where there's definitely, it goes back to the whole neuroendocrine immune. So you can have your immune system be off from a variety of reasons, the endocrine system is all off, the nervous system's off, but all of those things can be tested for and treated. So I've seen a number of women where they're like, okay, here's where we're going to start. We're going to peel away the layers of looking at what's toxic to their body, whether it's toxicity from a chronic infection like Lyme disease or toxicity from heavy metals or solvents or the electromagnetic field, what nutrients they're deficient in. Is it probiotics? Is it minerals? Is it vitamins? All those things that the body needs. And it's amazing what happens when you remove all those obstacles to getting better and you give the body what it needs. So I've seen it's almost miraculous sometimes. And then there is frequently a component of depression with fibromyalgia that goes along with it, not just from the not feeling well, but a lot of women that I've seen tend to be women who are like super women, who they really push themselves to do a lot and keep going. And there's often something emotional going on that they're not wanting to face. And then they're so exhausted and so depleted they just can't do anything. And so that's really a good case also for, you really have to address the emotional component as well as all the other things that I mentioned. But I have, again, I can't help everybody, but I've seen a number of women who get better. And it doesn't have to be a long, complicated, expensive treatment either, And we our approach in the practice, what I've learned from Dr. Sensenig is, what's the least I can do to get somebody better?
Yeah,
so I don't like to send people home with like grocery bags of supplements.
Right.
And if you look at the whole person, you go, okay, well, this all comes down to you need this vitamin or this mineral, so let's start there, or we need to do this first, and you do it in layers so it's not overwhelming. You're kind of like, what's the lowest common denominator to start with?
I think. Go ahead. No, just say I think that people are afraid of that. It's going to be so expensive. We're going to have all these things I have to take, and I hate taking pills, they say, so forth and so on. So that's good that you explain that.
Does that make sense to you? I know I don't
Yeah.
want to cut you off either, because things always make sense in my head. You know, and most of the treatments now for fibromyalgia, there's Lyricuts and neuropathic pain medication or antidepressants, pain relievers, sleep aids, you know, and that sort of thing. And all of those end up contributing to the whole toxic buildup in the body. You know, even for people, it's so funny, some people eat organic and do eco-cleaners, but they're taking a handful of prescription medications
Yeah, right.
that are still throwing off the liver and the kidneys and everything else. But those, again, are treating all the symptoms. They're not ever addressing what's causing the fibromyalgia.
Right.
We have time for one more question,
Yeah, no,
Lisa.
my question was just how is health insurance receptive to your services?
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Oh,
question.
yeah, that's a great question. In general, many of the insurance companies are contracted with naturopathic doctors. The only ones that I know for sure aren't are Medicare and Medicaid. Don't cover.
They won't give any. They
won't get
those
but
people anything.
Anthem, Connecticut, Aetna, Cigna, all of those. I won't say they reimburse us very well, but they will cover. So we have, you know, our staff tell everybody who calls, please verify that your plan is covered, because everyone's plan's different.
Right.
But a lot of times it's covered, and people just have a copay for a specialist.
Wonderful.
So yeah, so that's really nice.
People out there should go to work and write to congressmen and so forth to get more insurance companies to cover naturopathic medicine, and to really get it on Medicare too, because the elderly people need this kind of medication. Especially they're so sensitive, the systems, that they need this, and it's just not fair. It's really not fair. So do what you can to get this passed.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess that we've come to the end of the show, sadly.
It's quick.
Yeah,
So quick, huh?
Bye.
Always so quick. So we're going to give the information. To contact information for Dr. Wertkin, his website is www.naturopathichealthconnecticut.com, and the phone number is 203-230-2200. And if you don't get it in time, just email me, and I will give you the information again. And to learn more about this show or any of our past shows, please contact us at healoutsidethebox@yahoo.com. Or to reach me, Rosemary Lachance, my phone number is 203-627-7966, or visit my website at www.rosemarylachance.com. And for Lisa, her phone number is 203-804-0024, and her website is www.theonejoy.com. We're also on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box. You can like us, and then you can read all the information about all the guests we've had. There's pictures of everyone and everything, and you can ask any questions you like, okay? All right, so the quote for tonight is, see all people as light. Know yourself to be light. See them not as bodies. See them all as light, and then the awful or pathetic things they do out of fear for the safety of their bodies or for the short-lived pleasure of their bodies will mean nothing to you. Look past the fears and obsessions and see our Creator in them. We are in the light in you, and we are always with you. That's from the angels.
That's beautiful.
Okay, well, time to say good night, and thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Night. It should go by fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did.
I think I hear the music.
Fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand. Fear's not allowed, where dreams can be lost or found. As you look out through the window,